What is up, guys? This is Chris, and we're back and ready for some more lore and understanding of lore and understanding of like symbolism and all that stuff in this game. I'm really excited. This episode is kind of like going back into the past a little bit. So basically right here at the beginning, I'm kind of rummaging through my stuff. I'm reorganizing my inventory, and it sounds kind of boring, but I do bring up something that I kind of glanced over in the past. I did read its description, but I didn't really understand what it was saying. And when I went back to it here, I kind of was like, there's a lot to this. There's a lot more to this item and its description than I understood before because I've gotten further in the game. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, I'm messing around right here. But I really, like I said, I reorganized my stuff. There's going to be a little skip in the video where I put stuff up in a chest. And I skip it because it literally took me like 5 minutes of me putting stuff in a chest. And I was like, that's probably not going to be a good video. And I also buy Papa Gas's equipment. I call him Papa Gas now. It sounds cooler, I think, than saying his whole name, Father Gascone, so we're calling Papa Gas, and I buy his equipment, and I believe that's all I'm doing right here at the beginning. And then throughout the episode, I ultimately end up fighting Vicar Amelia, and that's kind of where the video is going to end, is right after that. So leading up to that, there are many things we're going to look at, and the first thing is right here. It's Madman's Knowledge. Skull of a madman touched by the wisdom of the great ones, used to gain insight. Making contact with eldritch wisdom is a blessing, for even if it drives one mad, it allows one to serve a grander purpose for posterity. A lot of stuff right there, a lot of things, especially this is, I think, the first item you ever get that even mentions the great ones, and I kind of just glanced over it the first time, or maybe I did talk about it. I don't remember exactly if I mentioned too much about it other than that. But now in the game where I'm at now, it means a lot more, I believe. It has a lot more meaning to me, so we're going to talk about it a little bit. So the first thing it talks about is it's touched by the wisdom of the great ones. So great ones, apparently they're wide, or they think they're wide. Wise, not wide. They may be fat, who knows? But they think they're wise, and that kind of leads me to believe that the humans here believe the Grey Ones to be wise, right? Or that they know more than us. For some reason, they think that. Maybe that's not true. Maybe the Grey Ones don't know that. Maybe this is all false, and they think they're Great Ones just because they gain some power from ingesting their blood or whatnot, because that's what it seems like is going on, right? They're ingesting something of the Great Ones, and it seems like they think they're getting a power from it, and this power is wisdom and knowledge and insight. You see these things throughout this game. So that's what they're thinking, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's happening, because if you really read into it, eldritch, which isn't a proper noun in there, in other words, means I can define it with a definition. If you look up eldritch in a dictionary, you're going to find out that it means otherworldly, right? So it's an otherworldly is a blessing, basically, is what that's saying. It kind of simplifies that. Instead of saying eldritch, this weird word that people don't really use today as much, we do understand what otherworldly wisdom, but we don't know exactly what that means in the game, right? What is otherworldly? Is it a spiritual knowledge, wisdom? Is it a cosmotic wisdom? I don't think cosmotic is a word, but it sounds cool. We're going with it. So when we see the word cosmos a lot, right? So far in this game, look at that sexy beast on the screen right now. So is that what it's talking about? And it's a blessing, right? And then it goes into saying, even if it drives you crazy. So even knowing this, if it drives you crazy, it serves a grander purpose for posterity. And posterity means, it means basically future, right? Future of a race or a people, future of something. So even if this wisdom kills you or makes you go crazy, it's worth it because it lets you, I guess you could almost say, it lets you propagate this wisdom into the future so other people will know it. And that in itself is a grand thing. That's what that's saying, basically, in that item description. And if you look up like the synonyms for the word posterity, you get words like offspring and seed and spawn, which is weird because we saw an item last episode called the umbilical cord, which perfectly ties in with wisdom and posterity. And so I'm showing off my new arm, and it's here bowing and looking cool. I really actually like that top. I think the scarf is pretty cool looking. Anyways, so we get this connection, right, between what they're trying to say here on this thing is that maybe it's the idea of bringing this knowledge into the future through offsprings. and that in itself is worth it. So let's listen to what we find out her name is Ariana is talking about here.
Thank you. I'm in your debt. I'd like to tender my thanks, but I haven't much to offer. All I can give is my blood. But would you even take a whore's blood? Oh, good. Come close. Don't worry. This isn't the first time. Oh, hello. Sorry, dear. You're much too eager. I've only so much blood, okay?
So Ariana is a lady of the night. We're not sure if whoring in this world is the same as whoring in our world. It pretty much says so, I believe, in the description of the blood that we just got, that she's a woman of pleasure, right? But you got to remember, pleasure in this world also isn't the same as in our world, right? So thinking about it in that way, yeah, it's true. I mean, she is a quote unquote in the game probably the most beautiful lady I've seen. In fact, probably the only lady I've seen in the game. She seems to be designed to be pretty and to give you that idea of maybe that's what they're talking about. Melting Monk here is telling you that she's a kind one, she's a good person, right? But remember, in this world, especially with, I believe, the blood pungent cocktail or whatever it was called, says that, you know, blood in this world is intoxicating. It's the thing that drives people crazy. So maybe she's more of a whore in the blood sense, that she lets people take her blood and not so much, you know, taking her body, right? And you can read into it that way if you want. You could read into it both. Maybe she does both. Maybe she gets pleasure from both things, and that's kind of what it is. I'm starting to look at things around the place, just looking at some of the architecture, looking at some of these statues, and I realized one thing that I've realized throughout most of this game is that a lot of people's faces are covered up. There's very few NPCs or bosses and things that you fight where their faces aren't covered up. Ariana's one of them. The old lady over there is another one where their faces aren't really covered up. However, everything else in the game, it seems like something's missing on the face. And when I started thinking back on it, I was like, well, Papa Gas, his eyes were missing. So the item description on the blood Ariana says, blood taken from Ariana, cathedral woman of pleasure. The sweet blood Ariana restores HP, temporarily boosts speed. A member of the old healing church would know that her blood is similar indeed to precisely what once was forbidden, or was once forbidden. So we're going to talk a little bit about Ariana here in a minute, and it led me to something that I wanted to do recently, and I finally decided to start doing it, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I go on a little grand adventure here, so I'll have time to talk. Back to the Madman's Knowledge, though. If you go back to the item description, you can look it up on the internet, but if you look at the picture that's with it too, I believe there's some weird things going on with that, and it's a very detailed picture. In fact, if you look at that picture and then you look at other items pictures, it feels like that picture was like better, like more how do I say this, taken care of more. Like, it looks like someone took their time to really draw it. I die here from the stupidest things in this game sometimes, but he hits like a truck though, so I'm gonna use that as an excuse. But if you notice the way I've been playing, I play a lot more aggressive here for some reason. I'm like super aggressive. I'm like the first one to attack. Let me tell you this right now. If you don't want to die a lot, don't be the first one to attack. Wait till they attack, dodge, and then attack. See, I get hit by, like, if I would have just dodged that, I would have easily gotten around them. Anyways, so yeah, you look at this illustration. It seems like it's more, to me, it seemed more detailed, more colorful. Looks like someone took their time with it more than some of the other drawings. So I was like, man, that's really interesting. Why is it so detailed, you know? So I started really looking into it and really looking at the item. And that's why I kind of put it in this episode, because I was actually looking at it on my other character first. And that's when I realized some of these things. So I was like, well, I should put it on this character and then talk about it. The first thing is that it has a cracked skull. That's like the first thing you notice, and there's light coming out of it. And the skull doesn't look like it's been cracked by a weapon. It's not a very, it could maybe be cracked by a weapon, but it looks like something's coming out of the skull more than something is busted into it and now it's there, right? Because it looks like if you really think about it, if these were madmen and they died, right? Let's say not every madman, every skull you found so far has been hit by a weapon. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. So these skulls must have been sitting there and something must have bursted out of them. Or anyways, that's what this item picture looks like. Remember, it's just a description. That might not be what the item actually looks like. However, there's something later in this episode that kind of maybe makes me think otherwise. But if you look at it, you look at that cracked skull, you look at what's coming out of it, it looks like light. When you look at it really closely, it looks very, again, cosmos, very universe, space kind of thing. Again, I don't want to take cosmos and think of, I don't want to think of space. I don't want to think of like outer space and aliens. I don't want to think like that. I want to think of it more as how can I say it, like, it's hard to, like, more like harmony, or, you know, more otherworldly, kind of like the word eldritch in that kind of sense, and not so much just outer space sense. So when you look at it that way, you start looking into it, I really just think that is trying to show you that that's the knowledge. Now, if you look really closely, and I don't know if I'm digging too deep here or not, I could be, but if you look super closely, you look at what's coming out, and it kind of looks like a fissure, but if you look at the silhouette of it, it kind of looks like a bug of some type. I don't know. I think it looks like a slug, and it wouldn't be too far-fetched for me, because if you think of like Dark Souls, you think of like the Chaos Bug, you think of things like that, it's not too far-fetched for me that it would be a slug of some type or some kind of bug. That doesn't like be out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I'm guessing these people love their bugs. So to me, it looks like a slug. And here's me. I'm going deep here, guys. This is me going insanely deep on this. Going all the way for this one. If you look up what slugs symbolize, like, just look it up, like type it in Google and search for it. They symbol ethereal beings with healing capabilities, fertility, and unity. Are three of the things they symbolize. There wasn't anything really bad that they symboled. And then I found some other information on it. I don't want to. I guess, like, if I say it, do I have to like quote it and then tell you where I got it from? You know, just the internet. Let's just say the internet is my source. That's what I will say, whether it's Wikipedia or some crazy site. But I did find multiple versions of it, so it's not like one crazy slug fanatic person typed this webpage up. It was written in multiple places, but slugs symbolize these three things. If you remember most of this game, that we talk about healing, right? It's called the Healing Church, for crying out loud. And then fertility, we've already talked about fertility multiple times in this. And then unity. Again, otherworld unity. We talked about the cosmos, and cosmos meaning unity, right? In Greek, it means, let's see. In Greek, it means harmony or order. So there you go. So now you're getting all these weird things starting to connect to each other, using stuff from our world to make that connection. So you can kind of see, if you take a step back, take away from the lore and stuff like that, but look at the people who made this game and give them like credit for making this kind of connection with things. If it really comes out to being those things that I mentioned, it's really amazing that it shows that they took their time, right? That they really took their time in researching and trying to figure out these connections with these items. And maybe it's not a coincidence that it's these things. So I mean, kudos to them. If it really comes out to being like this, kudos to them for making that, because that's really awesome. I think I talked about the cosmos. I'm not sure. It's a Greek, like I just said. I just talked about it. I know that, but I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the previous episode or not. But cosmos, it actually starts with a K in Greek. It means, like I said, order and harmony. So this is leading me to believe that this knowledge is everything, including things unseen. And that's where that insight comes into play in this game, where you're kind of seeing the unseen once you get enough insight. So that's kind of Madman's knowledge, and when I went back and looked at it, that's kind of the stuff I started seeing out of it. There could be a lot more in there other than that, but for me right now, I just thought that was really cool when I went back and looked at that item, how much more it meant to me than it did when I first saw it. So now we're gonna go talk a little bit about Ariana, the lady we just met, the lady of the night. And she gives us her blood, which is kind of weird. I mean, I mean, how weird is that? But then I guess in this world, it's not that weird. Remember, blood is pleasure in this world. That's why That's why I think that maybe she's not just the lady of the night, right? And that she's not a whore in the sense that you think she is or we think she is. But she could be, right? She could do both. There's nothing that says it's not. Otherwise, it's just always think that. Remember that blood is also pleasure in this game. I open these doors right here and I freak out and I don't end up going in them right off the bat. So don't worry, the boss fight ain't coming up just yet. So you talk to her, like Melting Monk says she's a good person. I've mentioned this, and then she gives you the item called Blood of Ariana. Says she's a cathedral ward woman of pleasure. It's a sweet blood. It has a very, I guess, sweetness to it. I'm not sure what that means by sweet blood, but that's the best. I mean, maybe that has to do with her kindness. She's a good person. Maybe that's what it has to do. What else? It says the Old Healing Church, which I found interesting. So is there something older than the Healing Church that we know of, right? There's a Healing Church that we've heard of many times throughout this game, but the Old Healing Church, what does that mean? Is there something even like, is there a separate, that tells me there's a separation between there was an old one and then something happened and then a new one arose because the old one did something wrong maybe, or they did something different. And then as you read into a little bit more, it says she has a once forbidden blood, right? It was once forbidden. Maybe that's what the old church was, that it was a church at a time when this blood was once forbidden, but now the new church is like, screw it, we need to use everything we got, so we're going to use this blood now, so it's not forbidden anymore. Maybe that's what the separation between old and the regular Healing Church or the new Healing Church is. Once I met her, I was like, I should really give a thought about the names in this game, and maybe I should start looking them up and what they mean, right? What do these people's names mean? And then I started getting into a very weird trend where everything was very interesting. It didn't really give me too much lore, but it helped me identify the person maybe a little bit more. But it does help me, hopefully in the future, and I'm going to start seeing if I can do this, figuring out what these names mean, because there's a lot of things. So Ariana means holy. It actually means chastity, I believe, and chastity is holy. Just kind of weird because she's not in the sense chastis at all in this game, but maybe she is holy in another way. So that one, when I first saw that, I was like, okay, her name's in holy, which is kind of weird, but it could be. It says that her blood, and she is a good person apparently. It says that her blood is sweet, so there could be something to this. So I looked up Germont, the hunter. It means soldier. That's interesting. Okay, so his name means soldier. He's a hunter. He was the first hunter, so that's very interesting. I looked up Ludwig, and it means famous fighter. So, and in this game, he seems to be pretty famous. He seems to be pretty popular, and he is a fighter. So I was like, that's interesting. Henrik, and remember Henrik, we found his name on the throwing knives. It means Lord of the House. So right now, I don't know too much of what that means yet, but for right now, I know that it means that's what that means, because I don't know much about Henrik to begin. Then I was like, what about Papa Gas? What about Gascone? And what's weird about his name is that there's actually not too much of a meaning to it that I could find, but it does say, okay, so all the names I mentioned, Ariana, Germont, Ludwig, Henrik, all have a German act, like they came from, like, I don't want to say they came from Germany, but they all are Germanic, I guess, in a way, except for Gascone. And you can tell right off the bat that comes from France. So it's foreign, right? And Father Gascon was a foreign guy. So I thought that was a cool connection. Viola, his wife, is flower or violet, and it's a rhythmic sound. So the music box, pretty, a normal person maybe, in essence, is they're just trying to say she is innocent, right? And she was innocent. In the little story that she has in this little blip, she's a very innocent person who really just wanted her husband back. And the daughter's father and everything. So it's very kind of sad when you start thinking of it like that. When I started making these, I was like, wow, these have really good connections. And again, kudos to the people who made the game, FromSoft. Like, good job, like giving meaning to those. And actually, so we'll see if that trend continues. Like I said, there are some things like where Ariana is holy. Henrik is Lord of the House. What does that mean, right? Lord of the House makes me think vampiric or something, so maybe it's something along that nature. I haven't got far enough in the game to know anything else yet other than that, but it's very interesting. And then we start looking up, like I told you, I go fight Vicar Amelia, and I look up her name and what it stands for, and we'll talk about that when we get there. the so it's just I'm fighting these two, and I wanted to get into a little bit about this NPC hunter action. Why are hunters fighting hunters? This is what I'm trying to figure out. These two hunters, this hunter right here I'm fighting right now is an asshole, by the way. If you notice, the tactic I'm using is that I dodge into him, because you have invincibility frames in your dodge, so when he shoots his gun, he's actually wide open for an attack if you dodge into him. And that's what I'm trying to do. As you can see, I failed multiple times. His gun doesn't do a ton of damage unless you're right next to him, because it looks like a blunderbuss. And he actually has, it looks like Ludwig's rifle. But there's multiple times where I don't get a good look at it. Then he has this cool, like, I don't know what to call that thing, like a knife sword. But like I said, all I did was I try to keep him close as possible, and I try to just dodge straight into him each time. The other lady with the Tonatros wasn't that tough of a fight. The biggest thing is to fight these two separately. I think I got lucky in that I was creeping forward, and ultimately I ended up fighting them separately. If I had to fight them both at the same time, that might have been a way tougher fight. You notice they have a ton of HP. It's just a tough fight, but I really want to get in the lore aspect of fighting. Is why are hunters fighting hunters? Like, what is the point of that? Why aren't we banding together? Are these hunters from a different hunter's realm? Is that what they're trying to show? Or are they hunters left from Old Yarnum that kind of like the hunter in Old Yarnum, who doesn't like you or doesn't want you here for some reason? Is that the reasoning why? It really boggled my mind. I was like, why do hunters fight? Why are they fighting each other? Why are we hunting other hunters? Is it because I'm afraid they're going to turn into beasts and I'd rather deal with them now than later? Is that why they're hunting me? Those guys attacked me first, right? I didn't get to go up and talk to them and be like, I wasn't like, "Boy, what's up?" And then I hit them, and then they started attacking me. They straight just were adamant to kill me. Why? Is it because something is telling them to? Maybe the healing church is telling them to. What is, like, really, really why? There's no reason. They're not monsters yet. They weren't wolves. But then again, maybe they were turning into beasts, and they finally lost their humanity and their ability to be human, and then they were just like, we got to attack, and that's what they were. just something to think about as we play through the game, or for me to think about anyways as I go through here, because I have I just was like, why are they attacking me? That makes absolutely no sense. So I'm headed towards, it looks like an old big church kind of building. A lot of the buildings in this game look like churches, so I don't know what to call these different Victorian buildings, but this one looks like a big altar or church of some type. And these guys with the bags are everywhere. I think they put them in here in multiple spots because they want you to die by one and get carried off. I think any of them can carry you off to Yargul. So I think they put them in multiple spots like that in close quarters because they really wanted you to get abducted. Like they wanted that to happen and scared the shit out of you, because it is a scary moment. If you haven't, I'm sorry if you haven't witnessed it yet, but if you've been following the playthrough, it happened to me. And I had to show it off because I thought it was the coolest shit, but it is scary. I fall off right here, and I just need to shoot this guy. And I think it's a really cool aspect of the game, because the atmosphere in Yargul and how you show up there, if you don't show up there in the regular way, is just very, very, very unique in its way. So definitely, hopefully you guys got to experience that, and if you didn't, then I'm sorry. But even if you've seen it, I think the experience is still there. These guys seem to be like the Black Knights of the game. Like, if you remember Dark Souls, like, these guys seem to be like that, right? Because you see one like at the very beginning of the game. He's supposed to be pretty tough to kill, but he's actually not incredibly tough to kill at the beginning. Especially if you got your counters down or your parries or whatever. And I think they call them interrupts in this game. But that's what these guys seem to be like to me. They have the heavy armor. They're, again, heavily armored, heavily weaponized. They're ready to deal with you. They're fast. At the beginning of the game, they're hard to kill because they have a lot of health. At this point, I'm more leveled up. I'm more able to deal with them. But that's what they... So if you take like what they were in Dark Souls, they were kind of like the guards to something. That kind of makes me think that's what these guys are too, right? That they're guarding something. That they're guards to something that needs to be guarded. However, the first one you meet doesn't seem to be guarding jack squat. In fact, he is completely useless, and if you kill him, you don't really get anything other than the game just saying, hey, these guys exist. fight them. So it's very weird. That one is very weirdly placed. These two, however, aren't very weirdly placed. I take these modes down. These guys are so much easier to kill than geckos. At least I think they are. They last longer on the screen, and they're just easier to kill. They're easier to hit. So I'm kind of glad they made that change. I hope next game, or whatever game they make next, they keep them like this, because those geckos are a pain in the ass in the other games. They are such a pain in the ass to kill. I think I missed this item, then I remember that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm full of Quicksilver bullets, apparently. Could have grabbed 2 more, I guess, from that pile, since I'm down by 2. And I head in here, and I'm like, ooh, this place looks cool. What's going on? I can't wait to explore it. And I was really thinking I found a new way to explore. I was super excited. By that sentence, you should know that something happens here. A heavy syrup liquid medicine. Temporarily shifts weight to make deflection of attacks easier, but must be used with care, as it also slows movement with no change to defense. Its recipe for this mysterious concoction is unknown, and some postulate that it materializes only within the most desperate nightmares. So, again, we have a reference to nightmares. We have reference to dreams. We have reference to nightmares. What are we in? I think last episode I talked about that this place doesn't seem to really exist. Like, it just doesn't. I think if it was realistic in any sense of the way, it wouldn't have, like, Yharnam wouldn't have a bajillion coffins lying around. Like, to me, in a realistic world, that's just not the way it would be. I almost get attacked again by that thing. So the first time I saw that, I was at the Cathedral Ward, and remember, I picked up that armor. I think it was one of the hunter armors or something like that. And right after I picked it up, it attacked me. Whatever that is, I'm starting to think it's a great one, or a form of a great one, or something, right? Because remember, Oedon is formless. You can't see him, but he can interact with you, because he interacts with the people of the Healing Church all the time, apparently. So maybe that is a different great one. It's not. I don't think it's a weight on. Then to me, I don't know why he would just blatantly attack me. I don't have a reason for it yet. He may be, but I don't have a reason for it yet. So I don't think it's him. I think it's something else, a different type of great one, a different, maybe an eviler one, because apparently he just wants to hit me or hurt me. Well, I'll take that back. It frenzies you, right? It's there to scare you, but if you look at what frenzy really is in this game, and if one of those hits you, that's what it gives you. It gives you frenzy, and it kind of like lifts you up, and then it hits you really hard, and it seems to be an invisible enemy, because something like you float all of a sudden. But if you get, I don't think that's the spell causing you to float, so I think it's something else causing you to float. I finally decided to run in here, and then I don't think I noticed it right off the bat, but there's these statues right here. They're creepy. I notice it now as I look at it. They're creepy looking. They look almost alien-like. Right? I was like, I don't want to deal with aliens or space, but when you see something like that, you're like, that's alien or space. But it's also Lovecraftian. It's very Lovecraftian. So let's listen in right here, or see what happens. All right, so this is Vicar Amelia, but back to the nightmare thing. It's just very that frenzy thing. It just seems like it's coming from a great one. That's all I can really say. But it doesn't seem like it wants to kill me. It just seems like it wants to play, or it's just trying to hurt me and not really. It's like kind of pushing me away, trying to get rid of me. You know, I don't know. That's the only thing I think of. And considering that I found something called, I get annihilated so fast. But considering I found that lead vial or whatever it was called there, and it talked about nightmares, that's kind of what I'm thinking. You know, I can't make any other connections to that. But right here, I decided to show you. There's a couple things you should notice. One is my health vials are all the way full, and I have some souls, and that's because I had to farm some health vials, some blood vials back up. because I was on really low, and then I decided to come back, and then I'm showing this as the boss run back and how you can just run it back. You don't have to fight anything if you don't want to. Right here, you can do two things. You can either wait for him to run away. I wait for him to run away because he can attack you, and he hurts a lot if he does. However, after he runs away, you run by everybody and back to the boss. But that Vicar Amelia, she's it's called the Lead Elixir, by the way. Vicar Amelia, definitely very peculiar. After I beat this, like I said, after I beat it, I always go look up stuff about that person. And one of the things I found about Vicar Amelia is that if you have enough insight, you can hear her talking before you reach her. And during the boss fight, you hear her mumbling, which doesn't make sense during the boss fight because she's already a wolf. But, you know, it's still there. And I think she's actually really cool looking. I love that how her like uniform is still like on her head because she transformed and it didn't like completely wear off. I think that's awesome. One of the biggest things to also note with this boss is the eyes are covered, or they seem to be taken away, or something's wrong with the eyes. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the thing that she supposedly says, and I'm just going to repeat it all one time. And she says, "Seek the old blood, let us pray, let us wish to partake in communion. Let us partake in communion and feast upon the old blood. Our thirst for the blood sates." Our thirst for the old blood, God damn it. I knew this was going to happen. I was not going to be satiates us, soothes our fears, seek the old blood, but beware the frailty of men. Their wills are weak, minds are young. The foul beasts will dangle nectar and lure the meek into the depths. Remain wary of the frailty of men. Their wills are weak, minds young. Were it not for fear, death would go unlamented. Unlamented, Chris. Speak good English, please. Goodness. Okay. So it's a lot. She says like a whole poem, basically, of stuff. It is very much a poem, actually, what she says. The very first part, she talks about seeking the blood, let us pray, let us wish, partake in communion, there's communion again. Let's partake in communion, feast upon the old blood. Alright, that's weird. Okay, so that whole stanza, I guess you can say, is about seeking the blood, praying, let us wish, and partake in communion, and to feast upon it, the old blood, whatever the old blood is. Then after that, it says that the blood satiates us and soothes our fears, right? So taking in this blood calms us, makes us not scared anymore. But when you're seeking the old blood, you need to beware the frailty of men. Their wills are weak, their minds are young. I think minds young mean that they're not, they don't have the will or the ability to see everything, the knowledge, right? The eldritch knowledge, they don't have that. And that their wills are weak and they're not able to handle it. That's the frailty of men. Then it says the foul beast will dangle nectar and lure the meek into the depths. So who's the foul beasts, right? Are they the great ones? Are they the foul beasts that kind of lure the men into the depths? And what are they luring them there for if men are weak? Or is it to propagate their knowledge? Remember that's one of the things Mad Men Knowledge says was that even if it drives you mad or makes you die or go crazy, the idea that it propagates that knowledge is worth all of that. So these great ones might be trying to do that because remember, they want children for some reason. And then apparently they can never, their first ones always fail, or their children always fail, so they need surgeons. And that's maybe why they're luring people into the depths, is for their knowledge to be born within them. For all you know, into slugs. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So that would be crazy. I could see them doing that. It's stupid from up. And then at the end it says, "Were not for fear, death would go unlamented." In other words, fear is what makes death, right? Not much more into that than that, but it kind of, and then it talks, like I said, communion again, but you know, communion with quotes, you know, it's really just luring us down there and using us and pretending like it's giving us something in return, but in reality, they're using us for something else. That's the way I'm going to take that. As I said on this fight, and then just now I got that gold pendant. If you notice during the fight, my biggest tips for her is that we're about to get into some stuff right here. My biggest tip, this is gold, we'll get in that in a minute. Pendant of Vicar Amelia, used to change into a blood gem, fortifies weapon. This pendant passed down among the Vicars who head the healing church as a reminder of the cautionary adage, words that will open the gates of Bergenworth. So it's not really actually a deep lore description. It's just saying this pendant is passed down among Vicars, and we'll talk about what a Vicar is, and that it's the old adage, right? So I'm thinking more and more we're getting closer to figuring out what this password is. And I take a look at this skull that's glowing. Doesn't look that much different than a madman's knowledge, right? The item. It physically, the skull is different looking, kind of, yeah. But there's a bunch of mystical, cosmotic stuff coming out of its head. Again, that's not a word, I don't think. and it's cracked. So let's see what this cutscene has. Very interesting flashback, I believe.
Master Willem, I've come to bid you farewell.
Oh, I know. You think now to betray me.
No, but you will never listen.
Look at that staff. Look at it.
We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Our eyes are yet to open.
Fear the old blood. I must take my leave.
Alright, we meet Willem, which is the old guy in the chair. We meet Lawrence, who's the person he's talking to, but we don't really get to see who that is. Like I said, this skull kind of looks a lot like Madman's Knowledge, except bigger and creepier looking. And look, I mean, how big that is. So, and it doesn't look like a wolf skull. It kind of looks like something in between a wolf skull and a human skull. Like, you know, we just fought Vicar Amelia. Her skull wouldn't look like that. But then again, it could just be the way it looks, you know. Maybe cleric bestial like. I don't know. I'm waving at it. Thank you for the lore. Bye, lore. But back to Vicar Amelia real quick before we get into that flashback. She gives you that gold pendant. What a Vicar is basically someone in place of. So acting of. So a Vicar, so Amelia is, if she's the head of the church, she's an acting head of the church. That she's not the actual one. Apparently there's been multiple of them passed down because the pendant said so. The doll's quote right here is so good. It's really good, and it has a lot, and it has not. I don't know if it has a lot of lore meaning, but it's just a good quote in general. I believe if you really think about it, she's basically saying, you know, the gods. Hunters talk about the church, about the gods and their love, but do the gods actually love their creations, right? And then she goes into, you guys created me, but do you actually love me? I love you, but that's because you created me like that. Kind of makes you think about the way situations are going in this game. But man, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to talk about. I don't know if I have enough in this episode. But so Amelia, let's go back. I'm looking at my notes. Amelia's her name means work, industrious, and fertile. Anything fertile is in her, and again, very interesting. What else? Let's see. Willem, I believe I ended up looking up. Willem is seems to be getting in the flashback. This again, the skull looks like the Madman Knowledge. It seems in the flashback that he's being betrayed by Lawrence, but I don't know, like betrayed is the word, right? Because he didn't seem to care too much that Lawrence was going to do something he's not supposed to. And Lawrence believes in something, and Willem thinks of it as an act of betrayal. And then they go into that we are born of blood, blah, blah, but fear the old blood. And it kind of ties back into what Amelia was saying, is beware the frailty of men. Their wills are weak and minds are young. So I think Willem is trying to warn Lawrence that, look, man, if you go there, or you go to wherever this old blood is, to fear it, because that's the adage. So that's ultimately what the old adage is. It's to fear the old blood. Where that old blood is located, I'm thinking is in Bergenworth, because I think that's the password of Bergenworth, so all of that makes sense. But Willem is really telling Lawrence not to go there. But Lawrence is like, look, it's cool, it's fine, we'll be all right. You know, you're not right, Willem. Is basically what Lawrence is saying. You're not right. So Lawrence is gonna go do something he's not supposed to. So I think that's kind of the start of maybe where the bad things happen in Bergenworth. Maybe that whole scene took place in Bergenworth, and that's kind of the stuff that starts it, and why it ends up being closed down is because of something Lawrence did, and because he thought he could handle it and ended up not being able to, because again, you are dealing with the great ones. So Willem means will or desire, right? That's basically so Willem may desire something. We may find out what that is later, what he desires, or maybe it means nothing, and that's one of the ones where it actually finally means nothing. And Lawrence is funny because it means it's symbolic with a tradition or adventure of their own. So they want to go do their own thing, which is kind of symbolic of exactly what we saw. Like I said, the doll talks about, hunters have told me about the church, about the gods and their love, but do the gods love the creations? I am a doll created by you humans. Would you ever think to love me? Of course, I do love you. Isn't that how you've made me? And this whole time you've been using her to level up. I mean, do you love her? Have you ever thought about, caring for her or giving her the things she wants and things like that? You did give her a little comb thing, but, and it makes you think, okay, well, what about above us, right? Above humans, maybe the great ones, did they create us? Are they just using us? Do they actually love us? Or are they just using us for the same thing, right? They don't really care. They're just using us for maybe propagate something into the future. That's kind of where I'm going to end it all. Just leave it at that. Like I said, I run back this way. I'm really looking at those circles on the ground, but we'll talk about that a little bit maybe later. But I'm out of here, guys. I'll check you out next time. See y'all on episode 9. I'm ready. I'm ready for what's coming up. Peace, guys.